Hi, I'm John Hornick. Welcome to lesson 34 of Chef's Apprentice, learning to cook like a pro, one small plate at a time. This lesson is Tartiflette Savoyarde in mini skillets. This is my small plate riff on a classic French bistro standard. I have scaled it down to mini cast iron skillets, which is all anyone really ever needs to eat of this super rich dish. I also use potatoes of several different colors, which makes a great presentation. You will learn an important technique here, clarifying butter. Clarified butter has had its buttermilk solids cooked away. The resulting butter has a higher smoke point and a cleaner golden look. You will also scald onions in cream, which infuses the cream with an onion flavor. Purists would strain the onions out before using the cream. In this preparation, the onions provide texture in the finished dish, so I don't strain them out. Your ever-developing delicate touch will be needed here to layer the ingredients in the mini skillets. Your guests will love this dish on a cold winter night. Techniques today are peeling, slicing, and seasoning potatoes, chopping, grating cheese, clarifying butter, blanching, simmering, and sautéing bacon, scalding onions in cream, layering ingredients, baking, and garnishing. So let's start cooking. Okay, let's talk about the mise en place for lesson 34, Tartiflette Savoyarde in mini skillets. First, we're going to need about 2 slices of lean bacon. So you might need to use a little bit more than 2 slices, so you get about 2 slices worth of lean bacon. And that needs to be blanched, simmered for 10 minutes, and then blotted, and then sautéed till it's about half done, and then blotted with brown paper to get the extra grease off, and then sliced into little pieces that are about 1/8 of an inch strip. So you've done all this before in prior lessons. Okay, then we're going to need to have about 20 small potatoes. Now I've used purple potatoes, red potatoes, and yellow potatoes. They're all about the size of a ping pong ball, and you'll need about 20 of them. Now when I say about, it really depends upon how many of these you're making and on the size of your cast iron skillets. These are 4-inch skillets. I'll talk about these in the equipment. But you're going to need to have enough sliced potatoes to fill up each one of those skillets. So take a look at how big your skillets are, take a look at how big your potatoes are, and then figure out about how many potatoes you're going to need. Now I have peeled these. They need to be peeled and thinly sliced into slices that are about between a 16th of an inch and an 1/8 of an inch thick. Preferably closer to 16th of an inch, because we want these to cook while they're baking. We're not blanching them in this preparation. We're also going to need about 1/2 cup of finely chopped red onion. And then we're going to need 3/4 of a cup of shredded Gruyere cheese. Now, this needs to be divided up into about 1/2 cup and into about 1/4 cup. We're going to use 1/2 cup in the scalded cream, and we're going to use about 1/4 cup as a topping for each one of these mini skillets. We'll need to have 1 cup of heavy cream, and we will need to have 1 stick of butter. This is unsalted butter. We won't need all of this, but when you're clarifying butter, you really need to do at least a stick, otherwise it's harder to do. So you'll have some clarified butter left over probably. And then we'll also need to have kosher salt and a Peppermill. Okay, so that's all of the ingredients that we need. Break now, come back, and I'll show you the equipment you need for lesson 34. Okay, let's talk about the equipment for lesson 34. You need a cutting board and a chef's knife. You will also need to have a small saucepan in which you will blanch the bacon. Then you'll need a skillet or a saute pan for sauteing the bacon. And then you'll need some brown paper to drain and blot the bacon after you've sauteed it. You need to have a peeler to peel the potatoes, and using the OXO peeler, as I always do. You need to have a mandoline to slice the potatoes very thinly. Cheese grater to grate the Gruyere cheese. You will need to have a small saucepan for purposes of clarifying the butter. Now, you shouldn't use a real big saucepan for this. You should use fairly small, because you're going to be doing, if you're only doing 1 stick of butter, this is a good size. And then you'll need to have a bowl that's full of ice that you can then put the saucepan into to stop the cooking in the clarifying process. I'll show you that a little bit later on. You need to have a brush to brush the butter into the skillets. We need to have a saucepan for the cream and onions. Yeah, the onions, that's right. And a wooden spoon. Now you could probably use the same saucepan that you used for the butter. It depends on how much you're making. And then finally, we'll need to have these mini skillets, cast iron skillets. These are made by the company Lodge, Lodge. They're made in the USA. They're 4 inches, they're cast iron, and I think they're great. And I'm going to be making, I may make as many as 8, I'm not sure yet. But again, you will need as many as you're going to be making for this dish. You'll need enough potatoes to fill them. Okay, that's all of the equipment that we'll need for lesson 34. Right now, come back and start cooking. Okay, the first thing on our list is to heat up the oven to 350 degrees, which I have done. The next thing on the list is to clarify the butter. To clarify butter, what we're going to do is put a stick of butter, which is 8 tablespoons, into a small saucepan, and we're going to bring it to a boil. We're going to watch it carefully. The heat's going to be about medium to medium high, but we're going to keep a close eye on it. And when it starts to boil, it'll start to get foamy on the top. And that foam is the liquid and milk solids starting to burn off. You can skim those off if you like, and then what we want to do is get the butter to be golden, and then to plunge it into a bowl of ice. Not ice water, but just a bowl of ice, and that will stop the cooking. If you let it go past the golden stage, it becomes what's called beurre noisette, and it has the faint smell of hazelnuts. So we're going to go off camera, bring this to a boil, come back, and show you how to finish clarifying it. So as you can see, the butter is starting to come to a boil and it's starting to get some foam on top. Now, why do we clarify butter? We clarify it because it gets rid of the milk solids, which can burn if you're cooking. And that causes the butter to have a higher smoke point. You can get it hotter before it starts to burn. Clarified butter is also great for brushing. If you're going to brush on the top of pastry, we're going to be brushing it into the mini skillets that we'll be using to cook the tartiflette. So we got to keep a close eye on this. The bubbles will get bigger, and then they will start to go away. And just as they start to go away, that's when we're getting to the point when the butter is clarified. Almost all of the liquids and milk solids have been burned off, or cooked off. And then we're going to plunge it into that ice. Okay, the bubbles are going away. We're going to put this directly into the ice. That's going to stop the cooking. Turn off the heat. And that's going to give us a golden butter. You can see there's some burned milk solids on the bottom of the pan. Those will stay there. We'll pour this butter off and you'll have a golden butter. Now, if you wanted to cook it farther and get brown butter, beurre noisette, just cook it a little bit longer, but you have to keep a really close eye on it because the time between going from golden to brown to burned can be seconds, depending on how high your heat is. Okay, so the next step, according to our prep list, is to take the clarified butter that we just made and to brush each one of the mini skillets. We want to have them well covered on the inside and on the rim. Next step on our prep list is to scald the onions in the cream. Now, scalding, really, we're going to put this on medium heat, medium high I should say, and just add in those onions. Now, scalding really means bringing cream to a boil, and sometimes you're just doing that to bring the cream to a boil for some other purpose. You're going to add it to some other mixture, or in this case we're scalding the onions in the cream. So we're going to bring that to a boil. Okay, so the cream is just coming to a boil. We want to get it before it one boils over and before it forms a skin. So we're just bringing it to a boil, then we are reducing the heat to a little bit more than low. Now we're going to add that half a cup of Gruyere cheese, And we want to stir it to melt that cheese in the hot cream. Then we want to add the bacon. And we want to let this simmer on low for about 5 minutes. Okay, next step is to season the potatoes with salt and freshly ground black pepper. Okay, we just finished simmering this. I wish you were here and you could smell how good this smells. This onion and the Gruyere and the bacon and this cream just smells great. Okay, next step is to start to layer the potatoes into the skillets. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do a layer of potatoes, then a little layer of cream, and then another layer of potatoes, and we're going to keep doing that until we fill these up. Okay, next thing on our prep list is to top these babies with Gruyere. Then a twist of pepper. Okay, I put the mini skillets on a silpat mat on a half sheet pan. You don't have to do that. You can just put them in the oven. We're going to put them in the oven at 350 degrees for 15 to 30 minutes. Why such a wide range? Well, because we don't know exactly how these particular skillets are going to act in the stove at 350 degrees and with this particular mixture. If these been a little larger, a little smaller, it might take more or less time. All right, into the oven, and for 15 minutes, we're going to check them at that time. Okay, it's been 15 minutes. Let's test it. The potatoes still seem a little bit undercooked. Okay, so we're going to put it back in the oven for another 5 minutes and check it then. Okay, here's one of the skillets. It looks beautiful. The toothpick is going through the potatoes nicely. This is finished. I wish you could see the bubbling and smell this. It smells great. So you can see final photos or photos of the final preparation at my Instagram, which is Chef's Apprentice, Cook Like a Pro. Next up is salmon poached in red miso. Please remember to subscribe to my channel, and thanks for watching.